Breaking today, the final traces of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle from the British royal family are being erased. And this is far more significant than just the destruction of their former home. So, the couple's £2.4 million renovations, you'll remember how controversial these were on Frogmore Cottage within the Windsor estate. Remember, Frogmore Cottage, which they renovated at vast expense to British taxpayers before being shamed into paying back the money. Well, all of those renovations are to be bulldozed. And this is very symbolic. King Charles is conceding here that Prince William is right about the fact that the Sussexes simply can never return to the United Kingdom in any form, can never have any royal role again. Their home, the place that they wanted to keep as some sort of base in the United Kingdom paid for by us, is going to go back to being multiple cottages because simply it is not fit for them to return. The Sun revealed the news earlier today as they reported the pad was converted from 2 semi-detached houses into one large family property after the late Queen gave it to them as a wedding present in 2018. The pair splashed the cash on transforming the home, only to step down as working royals and move to California in 2020. Harry paid back the £2.4 million 6 months after leaving the royals and was officially evicted by the King in 2023, weeks after publishing his memoir Spare. The couple no longer have a UK home, but Harry wants to return with Meghan and their children, Lily and Archie, if his security is reinstated following an ongoing Home Office review. Options are being looked at, and one may be subdividing the property, it is understood. Assessments are being done to see if the house can be separated again, say sources, but building has not yet begun. Insiders claim it will need major and expensive renovation to bring it back to the pre-Meghan and Harry era. Frogmore is owned by the Crown Estate. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor rejected bids to move him there as part of his Royal Lodge eviction talks. A source said it's been empty for 3 years. Even Andrew thought it wasn't good enough for him to move in. Maybe if they get rid of any trace of Harry and Meghan, then someone within the royal household will fancy it. It would draw the line under Frogmore Cottage's controversial history and return it to the pre-Meghan and Harry era. It took almost a year to transform the home for the Sussexes, including creating a yoga studio, replacing ceiling beams, rewiring the electrics, and installing new gas and water mains. Weren't they ungrateful so-and-sos? The couple paid for their own fixtures and fittings, including a £5,000 copper bathtub and decoration by Soho House designer Vicky Charles, which included vegan paint. They moved in shortly before Archie's birth in 2019, but later that year left for Canada. The following January, they announced plans to leave the UK and step down as working royals. The Sussexes stayed at Frogmore during the late Queen's Platinum Jubilee and for her funeral in 2022, but then they were booted out. Rafe Hadel-Mancu is a royal historian, fellow at the New Culture Forum, and he joins me now. And Rafe, to me, this story is actually more significant than it may seem, because it is the royal family quite clearly drawing a line under Harry and Meghan's time here. And you will know, Rafe, King Charles has been facing a lot of accusations lately that he is behind some type of attempt to secretly return Harry and Meghan to the UK. It's been discussed as something called Operation Thaw, which has seen a whole load of political figures from Yvette Cooper to Boris Johnson sort of be sent out to try and make the British public believe that we in some way should give Harry another chance. But I think this is some real pushback, and it's making it clear, is it not, Rafe, that we simply do not want them, but also that the royal family simply do not want them. Because, of course, if Operation Thaw was real, the obvious place for Harry and Meghan to return would have been Frogmore Cottage. And despite spending all of that money, Rafe, it's literally about to be bulldozed. At least the renovations will be, because it's going to be turned back into, I believe, multiple flats for effectively senior members of the household, which is what it was before Harry and Meghan lived there.
That's right. The idea is to bring it back to being 2 separate staff units. And yes, the symbolism is quite clear, and the royal family, more than anybody, understands how these things will be seen. So I think there was clearly some intent here. They are quite literally erasing, expunging every trace of the Duke and Duchess of Duplicity from the royal residences, from the royal estates. And of course, it also highlights, as an aside, the duplicity of the Sussexes, as I said, that they are posing as always as champions of sustainability. And here they spent £2.4 million, originally of taxpayer money, which they later then paid for themselves, in order to put in these yoga studios, to put in all these copper baths and so forth. So much for living within your means. And now, of course, all comes to naught. It's quite a nice luxury to be able to spend 2.4 million without even thinking about it. But yes, I think the messaging here is quite clear. There is no place for them within the royal household, within the royal entourage, no matter how much they try to portray themselves as pseudo royals. And I think you can see quite clearly on the part of the Duke of Sussex an attempt to try to open up an avenue to return to the fold. As I like to say, he really only knows how to be a prince, a soldier, and a polo player, none of which are very useful when you live in California. And that's why you're seeing increasingly these attempts to try to ape the royals and go on these trips to Australia and elsewhere, and basically try to remind the royal family of how good a prince he can be when he tries. Well, I'm sorry, every time they do go on these trips, there are also lucrative money-making deals attached to them all. And as the late Queen said, you can't be half in, half out. Nothing they're doing shows any sign of humility or any sign of understanding the way they do need to behave if they are to start walking back on that long, hard path back into acceptance. And however much or not the thaw may be coming from Buckingham Palace, certainly from the part of the office of the Prince and Princess of Wales, things are as frosty, if not frostbitten, as ever.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you, Rafe. Does this not show that actually it's Kensington Palace now that calls the shots on a lot of these big concerns of the future rather than Buckingham Palace? And part of that is because of the King's health battle and the fact that a lot of people feel that the, I guess, gravitational sort of direction of the monarchy is now being led by Prince William. And William is absolutely categorical. So his father might be a little bit softer. There's a whole load of reasons for that. But William is absolutely categorical that Harry and Meghan just have to be banished. You know, they have to live in exile. And William's going to be furious if the government and this Ravek committee give him the security protection back, because that means Harry can swan in and swan out whenever he wants. And what I believe is going on, Rafe, is that this is just a financial play anyway, because these two are dead broke. Now, that's not to say they don't have some money in the bank, Rafe. Of course they do. But the money in the bank is like the inheritance from Princess Diana and the Queen Mother. They're spending all of the money that they're earning on this astronomical security bill, this astronomical rental, but well, it's not a rental bill, is it? Mortgage on the property in Montecito. And I think they want to come back, use the proximity to the British royal family in order to get more financial deals. And I think William sees through it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I've said for a long time, and it's not just me, obviously, it's common sense. They've now finally understood that their salience, their relevance to the public, their ability to attract money is all relevant, is all related to their proximity to the crown. And the more distant they become from the royal family, the more their star, if it ever was a star, tumbles and gets tarnished. And now it's basically little more than a damp squib. People are bored of them. They realize how vacuous actually they are as a couple. They can see how clawing and ambitious Meghan is, quite blatantly. And they realize now, unless they try to somehow ingratiate themselves back into the royal favor, they have a limited shelf life. You know, they're not young people. They're no longer going to be appealing to the young demographic or getting the tabloids as they get older. So they are already middle-aged, and although they show no signs of maturity on that level. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and this is the only way they can surely have a secure financial future. We've seen how mediocre and miserable their trip was to Australia in terms of raising money. We saw the huge embarrassment for Meghan when she went to see the very sensible Swiss in Geneva, and she had enough people there to fill a British phone box. Nobody is interested in them any longer.
That was terrible. 10 people showed up. Well, 10 fans showed up. There were like a few journalists and stuff. And Rafe, Guess what she thinks is going to turn around the finances now? She's actually launching matchsticks. That's the latest. Look at this. Oh, God. Matchsticks. Well, I guess it's burning down Frogmore Cottage, at least, that the royal family are intending to do, Rafe. But look, do stand by, because we're about to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. But first, I want to get to some of our feedback on today's two big breaking news stories, which outspoken viewers have huge amount of reaction to, often antisocial, on Sadiq Khan going to this pilgrimage in Mecca while London metaphorically burns down. Writes, carnage, I like that, with a K, has done nothing positive for the UK. And Doreen Alice makes a good point. I'd like to know who's paying for the trip. It's a personal trip, but I bet the taxpayers are paying for it somehow. Well, exactly, we need to know about security, don't we? Does he have security paid for by us out there? I would assume so, but I don't know for a fact. Then we get to Henry Novak and the terrible, terrible murder, we can now say murder, of the young 18-year-old Essex lad, Henry Novak, killed by a Sikh man as police handcuffed him on some spurious charge of racism. Not paranoid, just alert, says the police are supposed to be impartial, especially at the point of arrest. Grace 911 says the stab wounds and blood weren't a hint, as in they should have been. The police should have known. Spudzo 123 says Starmer is to blame with his racist rhetoric against the English. Theo Phyllis says police didn't do their jobs. They listened to the murderer and took his word over the victim. Crafty Lars says what was confusing and unclear about a kid bleeding on the ground. Dylan Hughes 5950 says, I hate saying this, but if Henry had been a young black man, there would be a riot. We need to stand together to fight this discrimination. English Entrepreneur V2 says, waiting for the laptop with the only copy of the Henry Novak footage to go missing. Indeed, we need to see it. Elon Musk is threatening a private prosecution. We have to see it. I Spy the Sky 124 says Henry died in disbelief. He thought he was lucky to be rescued by the police, and the police let him down. Oh, that's what gets to me. And Cerulean Sword, who has been a Dan Wilson outspoken member for the past month, thank you, says this boy's last memories of life were being attacked, accused, and handcuffed by his attacker and rescuers, whilst he painfully bleeds out, likely while begging for help. Never forget Henry Novak, and we won't. We will not. A reminder of today's Union Jackass nominees. A very quick but personal message from me to you to let you know that the best way you can support Dan Wootton Outspoken is to subscribe to my Substack at www.outspoken.live. Substack is a free speech platform that protects me from big tech cancellation and lawfare. Paid annual or monthly subscribers get an extra hour of content with the Royal Uncancelled After Show available every weekday with no advertising whatsoever. You can also message me direct on there. That's www.outspoken.live. James O'Brien, the LBC presenter, nominated by Rafe Haydel-Mancoux for his rank hypocrisy, demanding an apology from Reform UK after his barrage of insults towards Nigel Farage over the years. Also nominated by Rafe, Judge Nicholas Rowland, who gave this non-custodial youth rehabilitation sentence to 3 teenage boys convicted of gang raping 2 15-year-old girls at knife point. Another horrifying story. And I've gone for Zia Yusuf for gaslighting the nation, insisting there's no civil war within Reform UK, despite launching a civil war. Okay, it was very close before the show. Let's see the results now. With 19%, it's my choice, Zia Yusuf. So Rafe's definitely won today. But interestingly, James O'Brien is the runner-up with 33% of the vote. But it's this judge, who we don't even know the identity of visually, Judge Nicholas Rowland, but his actions have so disgusted you that 47% of you have made him today's Union Jackass. And he will go head-to-head, by the way, to be named the worst Briton in the world this week, against Nicola Sturgeon, who was Tuesday's Union Jackass, and Tony Blair, who was Wednesday's Union Jackass. We will announce the winner on tomorrow's show. You'll be able to vote in the Posts tab on YouTube imminently. And a very special Greatest Britain today, Rafe Haydel-Mancoux. It is the great late Peter Whittle, who was the force behind your organization, the New Culture Forum. And I am delighted, Rafe, that you are keeping going in his memory the New Culture Literary Forum. Now, I was so delighted to be at this event last year. It was absolutely amazing. I was on stage with your brilliant colleague, Philip Casale, who will be here tomorrow, actually, on Outspoken. But you're going ahead with this despite Peter's death this year. You've got great names lined up and you've got a special offer for Outspoken viewers, Rafe. So what can you tell us?
Yes, thanks so much. Well, we had to continue Peter's legacy. He was so passionate about our literary festival. It's a 2-day event. It's a free speech festival for real, true-born British patriots to come together and celebrate, a chance to meet some of your favorite writers and speakers and broadcasters, because the fact is, all our institutions have been captured by the far left, including things like literary festivals, where you only get one viewpoint, one opinion. There's no diversity of thought or opinion. So we on the right have to build our own institutions. We have to fight back. So we're doing that at the New Culture Forum in this, our 20th year. So if you want to ensure that people on the right do have a place to come and go and speak freely and hear from great speakers, please do come along on Friday the 5th and Saturday the 6th of June in London, in Westminster. Special discount code for, well, go to our website for tickets, newcultureforum.org.uk, newcultureforum.org.uk. And if you're a Dan Wootton Outspoken viewer, just put in the code DWO15, DWO15, and you'll get a discount on the ticket prices. We've got Dominic Frisby, the comedian, Alison Pearson from The Telegraph, Lord Nigel Biggar, so big on colonialism and reparations, Lord Frost, the Brexit negotiator, very important now with sleazy Starmer, perhaps trying to get us back into the EU. Anyway, too many names to mention. Do come and support us. It's really important now at this time that we build these institutions on the right, and it's great fun, and there's wine and receptions as well, and a chance also to buy books from a great right-wing bookstore and have them signed by your favorite authors. Thanks, Dan.
Honestly, it's an amazing event.
Contributor.
It is an amazing event. So Rafe, can you just remind people exactly what website they need to go to and what code I've got to put in?
Yes, so just go to the New Culture Forum website, just Google that, or newcultureforum.org.uk, and the special code for Dan Wootton Outspoken viewers is DWO for Dan Wootton Outspoken, so DWO15.
DWO15.
The bulldozers aren't just tearing down walls at Frogmore Cottage. They're burying the last illusion that Harry and Meghan ever had a way back in. And here's what nobody is saying out loud. William didn't just approve this. He engineered it. Let's be clear about what's actually happening here. This isn't a routine property decision. This isn't the Crown Estate doing some administrative housekeeping. This is a deliberate, calculated act of finality, and it has William's fingerprints all over it. Think about what Frogmore Cottage represented. Harry and Meghan didn't just live there. They let the British taxpayer pour £2.4 million into that property. Renovations they personally oversaw. Choices they personally made. And now every wall, every fixture, every room they touched is being ripped out and erased like it never existed. That is not maintenance. That is erasure. And William knows exactly what message that sends. Not just to Harry and Meghan, but to the entire watching world. The door isn't just closed. The door has been pulled off its hinges, thrown in a skip, and the frame has been bricked over. Now, some people will try to frame this as petty, but they're missing the bigger picture entirely. This is statecraft. This is how institutions protect themselves. When a member of the firm goes rogue, writes a memoir exposing private family conversations, sits on a sofa in California accusing the monarchy of racism, makes Netflix millions off the family name, you don't negotiate. You eradicate the foothold. Because here's the truth that the Sussex supporters refuse to accept. Frogmore was Harry and Meghan's last legitimate claim to physical space within the royal world. As long as that cottage existed in some form tied to their memory, they could always point to it. They could always say, we were there. We belong there. We still have a connection. William has now made sure they cannot say that anymore. And let's talk about the money for a second, because this one detail exposes the Sussex narrative completely. Harry and Meghan spent years telling anyone who would listen that they were forced out, that they had no choice, that the institution failed them. But if you were truly pushed out against your will, why would the people who pushed you out spend £2.4 million renovating your home? You don't invest in someone you're trying to destroy. You invest in someone you're trying to keep. They were given every opportunity to stay. They chose California. They chose Netflix. They chose Spotify deals and Oprah confessionals. And now they have the extraordinary nerve to act wounded when the family they abandoned stops preserving their memory in stone. The renovations being demolished aren't a punishment. They're a receipt. But here's the question that should be keeping Harry up at night. And I mean really keeping him up at night. William is methodical. William is patient. And William does nothing without a reason. So if he's erasing Frogmore now, what else is he quietly dismantling behind the scenes? What other threads connecting Harry and Meghan to the institution are being cut while the cameras are pointed at the rubble? Because bulldozers make noise. They're meant to. And sometimes the loudest demolition is just the distraction. Drop a comment below. Do you think this is William's final move? Or is there something bigger coming that we haven't seen yet?